This may be news to some, but I love Metal Gear Solid. I even took a poll with myself recently, and of all of the artistic things that I've ever witnessed in my life, the Metal Gear Solid franchise has to be my favorite. The excitement I've had since Konami showed they were remaking Snake Eater has been astronomical, and everything I've seen so far looks amazing, except for a few graphical things, but it's minor complaints. It's almost scarily faithful to the point it took me until watching a good amount of gameplay to realize that they are all new animations. Some look a little strange if you overanalyze it, like Snake's crouch walk on slopes, making his knees like cave his chest in. They could just angle Snake's back based on the slope of the ground, maybe for the Peace Walker remake. I know a lot of people are wanting the MSX games remade or even the original Metal Gear Solid, but just hear me out. Peace Walker is the majority of casual Metal Gear Solid fans' least favorite game, but I have ideas. Before they possibly go more linear with Metal Gear Solid or decide not to make a larger size map with the MSX remakes, I want them to retry the open world formula from Metal Gear Solid 5. It was so nearly the greatest game ever. And now with the power of hindsight and an extensive knowledge of Metal Gear mechanics and lore, I believe I have a detailed pitch for Peace Walker Delta. This is a complete facelift and true consoleization of the PSP version with inspiration and mechanics pulled from the entire series. I think Metal Gear Peace Walker has the potential to be the greatest stealth sandbox in history, and I'm not lying. Honestly, the easy option would just be to ignore my advice and move on to Metal Gear Solid 1 or 2. Peace Walker was co-op, it had mother base mechanics, boss fights with heavily armored vehicles and mechs, all the extra ops, mini games, the Puyan mission. Yeah, the safe option is probably Metal Gear Solid 1 or 2. Something to mention now is we don't really need a remake of MGSV, so maybe just a next-gen patch and some slight model fixes. So the next game to come out in chronological order would be the original MSX games and like the whole start of Solid Snake. Especially longtime fans, you can't tell me that David Hayter and Richard Doyle voicing our two Snakes wouldn't be amazing. Not to mention the chance to fix all of the Phantom Pain plot holes and confusions from the story, as well as both of the big bosses, plural, their actions like behind the scenes, maybe even as post-credit scenes. I mean, have you seen the Metal Gear anime on YouTube? That shit's awesome. I really hope Konami wants to try their hands at remaking a larger game than Snake Eater. And if Delta goes well, I hope they don't mind putting some money into the development. But I also hope it's being put in the right place. Metal Gear Solid 5 was great and the best stealth action game to this day. I mean, that's just no, that's a fact. Yeah, look it up. But there were things, small things, that I would have liked to have changed. So it would have been better. Like maybe not have huge, expansive maps that have empty fields not used or patrolled. If they do choose Peace Walker, I hope they follow the same faithful formula as they did with Snake Eater. I mean, they already have Snake's model and even the sneaking suit and battle dress outfits from Peace Walker. And there's Coz's aviators. I mean, come on. The original voice lines are numerous, quite numerous. And there's so much potential for some amazing facial capture and performance. The different biomes allow for so many chances to show fascinating graphical ideas like the god rays falling through the canopy in the cloud forest, the particles of dirt and concrete flying up from Peace Walker when it leaps up and lands. If they do a lot of work into the details, it would be worth it, and not just the visual details. I really want the developers to knock this out of the park and have a game that defines the genre for another decade, like The Phantom Pain. And if they do too, they might as well use this video as a horribly organized blueprint on how to go about making Peace Walker the big boss game. Portable Ops is an alternate universe at best and a fanfiction at worst. It totally messes up Gray Fox and Skullface. Sorry, it make it a side multiplayer game like Survive. It would just be good fanfiction instead of, Konami's bad fanfiction. I'm not saying ignore it. I like my time with the game. Maybe you could rename it Online Ops and you can add competitive and cooperative modes along with a single player campaign. Before I start, I'd like to point out that I am fully aware that I have thought about this way too much, and as of recording the video, Metal Gear Solid Delta hasn't even come out, and we don't know if Peace Walker is even in Konami's thought bubble. This also isn't a retrospective review or a review of Peace Walker or Snake Eater. This is purely of me basically pitching my idea of a Peace Walker remake. My fan fiction, if you will.
You're a loser!
A lot of this is personal bias, but I've always loved the story of Big Boss. I've always read it as a tragedy. I figured the Patriots highlighted the worst of Big Boss and controlled the way people told his story to make it seem like he was the bad guy. And that's like the context that context.
Create context.
Create context.
That Solid Snake picked up being raised inside the Patriot system and remaining in it until basically his final retirement. There's so many people that think Big Boss was a bad guy, but that's the point. Like child soldiers, when was that? Nukes? But it's kind of a self-defense thing. I don't think he ever planned on using it, honestly. Like the man was not able to only convince Gray Fox, the best and brightest in Foxhound, but also Dr. Marv.
Nope.
Both of whom acted against Big Boss in the Outer Heaven incident. Like Gray Fox was even tortured by Venom Snake's men and presumed dead. Assumedly, he left Naomi for him too, as she recalls his experiments by Dr. Clark as if she read a report on it, and she wasn't there herself after the Patriots recovered his body from Zanzibar land. Big Boss has depth and sorrow surpassing many men. Not to say Solid Snake doesn't have it rough. MGS4 was just me watching my childhood hero lose his body to age in just a few short months after we last saw him. I wouldn't say Big Boss is my favorite. He just has my favorite settings and missions. I think Peace Walker was thought about as a boring game because of the presentation, but I've given a lot of thought on how to fix any and all concerns I had with Metal Gear Solid 5, the original Peace Walker, and all of the original games in the franchise so far. As I wrote this script, I broke it into sections and kind of expounded on each of them. So if I repeat myself, just think of it as mechanics that tie into each other perfectly. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I don't know, we'll go with that. I believe that I have cultivated the perfect mix of mechanics and ideas to make a remake of a quick mission game into a wide open world with more interaction than any game. The Phantom Pain was just a warm-up. This is the roadmap to Peace Walker. Let's start with co-op. I'm getting the most frustrating thing out of the way because it's arguably the most important aspect of Peace Walker, and it was the only reason I got my cousin to play it. I don't know why developers seem to be allergic to games where you work together with other players instead of pitting us against each other. Just personally, the most fun I've had with open world games were when I played with friends, like in Far Cry games and some Souls-likes. Like the shared goal allows for a much more cheerful experience, but there isn't any less of an incentive to be good at the game. In fact, games like Ghost of Tsushima's online mode made me level up my character and help new players on lower difficulties so they could get like the maximum reward. And that's an idea that my cousin shared with me. The camaraderie of co-op gameplay lends itself perfectly to stealth gameplay. Your partner can become the best or worst tool in infiltration depending on their skill, your skill, communication, gear levels, so many factors. And considering the story, you need co-op in some way. Just think of it like replacing the buddy system from Metal Gear Solid 5 with another human player. I understand the hassle of making this, but it worked so well in the original, and it was a peer-to-peer system, so it works to this day. I don't know much about coding multiplayer, but the original was ridiculously well optimized in my experience. I also feel like letting two people or more roam around the same world, especially far apart from each other, would be difficult to optimize, but maybe there is an easy way. I mean, Ghost Recon can do it, but like I said, this should be priority number one. There are many lore reasons for the co-op. There are tons of incentives to mess around with the added mechanics. And not only that, being able to do all of this with a friend is incredibly fun. I'm willing to relegate 4-player co-op only to like boss fights, like the vehicles and mech fights. Maybe some extra game modes, like some 4-player side ops in the open world, and some game modes for the mini games or competitive 2-on-2 stealth challenges. Maybe even a 4-player extraction or survival mode. I want to stay away from PvP in this game because it isn't really the best way to have multiplayer in Metal Gear Solid. It's much more difficult to use stealth against a player. They don't react realistically or reliably, especially after playing the game and getting good at the movement. And you also can't hide yourself as well as you could realistically. At some point, the lower skilled people just don't engage with it or actively dislike it. You'll have people exploiting and creating toxic player environments. For my idea, there is no PvP in the sense of the goal being to neutralize each other, but you can add competitive stealth PvE missions, like a steal the intel mission using random objective spawns, requiring like interrogating guards to find the right location. And in this mode, let the guards lie or tell you that they think that they saw it or they last heard of it in a general location, requiring you to search the tents or building structures to find it. Whoever finds it first wins, but you get removed points for causing alerts for your team. And you could cause trouble for the other team by throwing noisemakers or magazines or grenades or whatever, just to get the enemy on their trail instead of yours. The 4-player co-op stuff can raise or lower in difficulty, similar to how upgraded fobs appear in Metal Gear Solid 5, with soldiers wearing battle gear, intel being hidden in larger facilities, or facilities getting more cameras or mines. And the higher the difficulty, the more GMP you get. You can even make a subsistence variance for higher rewards. Aside from the more strenuous and likely server-based 4-player, I'd like 2-player co-op to be the standard. Some people won't agree with me. That's why I suggested 4-player modes for people with more than one friend. But games like Far Cry, Sniper Elite, I think, Frontiers of Pandora, and Splinter Cell, they all narrowed co-op down to 2 players. And as far as building an open world based on that and not making the game hard for solo players and piss baby easy when you use it, I think that 2 players is a fine limit. I'd like to be able to play the game front to back with a co-op buddy. Besides the tutorial and whatever solo co-op or solo missions that you can think of that you want to make, hell, make solo side ops in places made for co-op for really challenging missions. I will also say you should probably have the option to have a custom character for co-op or multiplayer, as there can only be one big boss. The original had you play as Big Boss and your partner was a Mother Base member, but that's how it looked to both players. I think the joining player should be the customized soldier while the host is Big Boss, or give us the option to choose. I'd like more extensive character creation than 5 as well. It would be cool to make my character look similar to Snake or Huey or Kaz. There should be a wide array of hairstyles and facial detail sliders, a facial tweak system like 5's can be carried over, but there was an egregious lack of hairstyle options and colors. If, Lord forbid, online support ends for this game, there has to be a way for players to still at least use the co-op, the 2-person co-op. That's how important this is for Peace Walker. The original Peace Walker allowed your character to hold the other's shoulder and mimic their movements while being able to use a sidearm. I cannot tell you how amazing this is as a room clearing mechanic and how unique it is as a stealth mechanic. Having this make sneaking around in tightly guarded, confined spaces as 2 people much less difficult. The tank box, the ambulance box, love box, the regular 2-person one. I'm not sure how I feel about calling it the love box, but maybe I'm just positive. The buddy lifts, all of it should absolutely be kept. All of this just adds to the charm and utility of co-op. It can really be refined with just 2 people. Not to mention some of the items in the original Peace Walker that you could use on other players, like the stealth camo sheet blanket thingy when they lean up against walls. I think the stealth camo or flattening yourself up against the walls or floors should apply to walls and floors, obviously. But the original Peace Walker only let you lay flat and not crawl and put your back up against the wall. In my new Peace Walker remake, I want you to be able to have the same movement as like the Snake Eater Delta remake, but let us flatten yourself against the wall or floor and let it add like 2 to 5% of a camo index, and it allows co-op items to be used. It's just an idea since there are so many actions to do, and making some of them dependent on your character's stance or flattened down could help contextualize controls. I also like the limited loadout slots in the original Peace Walker. The compass should be for everybody, but if one person wants to use a special box, then they have to sacrifice their surround indicator or a directional mic. One soldier can only carry a rocket launcher for a primary and needs the other soldier to cover with their primary unless they have the battle dress that lets them carry 2 primary weapons, or the sneaking suit that gives you another couple item slots. This gives the suits more utility than sound dampening or damage resistance to compensate for their less effective camouflage, and keeps the mechanics from the original. The previous point brings into question what the reward for engaging in the 4-player online co-op would be. I think GMP would be an obvious reward, but once you develop everything, there isn't anything to use GMP on. This could be avoided by getting a stock of online-only GMP that maybe you can use for new outfits or weapon skins, maybe new bandana colors or Mother Base member cosmetics. The reward shouldn't impact your progress in the regular game besides letting you use the gear acquired in the solo or 2-player regular mode. Maybe Mother Base paint jobs and goofy outfits, similar to the PF rewards in Metal Gear Solid 5, and maybe even increase your heroism, so there are higher level volunteers that you get. That would healthily impact regular gameplay, as well as make 4-player co-op something to do for more than just fun. I want an open world version of Costa Rica. I understand that the story requires going into the mountains and through villages and across bridges. Like, it's kind of linear in the original story, and I still want that. What I think would work would be more of a hand-holding open world, somewhat like the Zelda games before Breath of the Wild, but a more recent example would be Ghost of Tsushima. Something needs to prevent us from taking a specific path or climbing the cliff we need to get to the next story zone until something triggers the zone opening, Or we could just do the hot zone and mission area system that we used in Metal Gear Solid 5. But I want more world than what the PSP could give us, for sure. And while Metal Gear Solid 5 was amazing in its gameplay, Peace Walker could rival it. Create a decently large map, possibly just the size of one of 5's maps. Keep co-op in mind when making this game. Have some challenging areas that are difficult to sneak through solo, that reward players with high-level blueprints or soldiers. Give us incentive to invite our friends. But also don't make it impossible for solo players to get those blueprints. Like, let them develop either decoys or tool set to shoot enemies you select to simulate what another player can do in the basic sense. I don't want marking to be a thing. Not everyone would agree with this, but marking makes the game much, much, much too easy. I'm fine with the map being slightly more condensed to take care that each cubic mile is built with engaging stealth and movement and realistic soldier patrols and reactions. There should be a sonar or the directional indicator, the surround indicator, something that gives us a readout of biological signatures, but it should have a short range and it should also not show them in movement at the same time as it shows the distance. Maybe sonar or the radar from Metal Gear Solid 3 could return and even be battery powered as an additional restriction. You could develop better batteries later and upgrade the range, but never let us mark them and follow their movements everywhere on a map. Especially since I expect the density of the open world to match or surpass the original. Give us forest canopies to hide in the shadows of, or caves to hide in if there's no dangerous animals or snakes in it. Like cliffs to climb, rivers to swim through. Keeping all of this in mind when building the world of Costa Rica is important because the world needs to be engaging. Not every second, though. Don't let this game become a Ubisoft map or have no places to lose contact and reset alerts or rest your bones. Metal Gear Solid 5 handled its open world maps very well. Just have the important mission locations at least somewhat accurate to their location from the original game's map, and fill the rest with landscape and things to do. Have new facilities to sneak into, or rivers to swim across, caves to explore. Maybe some caves filled with water, similar to the gorge Snake falls into after his first duel with Ocelot and before the fight with the Pain and Snake Eater. I want swimming to be in the game, not just as an active mode of exploration, like not, swimming and cave diving and stuff. It doesn't have to be that, but just as a means of stealth or locomotion. The cave system is really just an idea. Gather information about the type of biomes that are present in the original game, as well as real-life references, and use those to build a believable world that Snake and his soldiers can operate in. Modes of travel can even include the box travel system, of fast travel from the Phantom Pain after you pick up an invoice for the facility, and two-person cardboard boxes can be used for you and your co-op friend to travel together. Otherwise, you would have to be in your own box and you could travel solo and your buddy can do their own thing. A quick note about the chase of Peace Walker at the end of the game. There could potentially be a long stretch of flat land or just a separately loaded map for the chase and the fights at the port. I think it would just make sense for the open world to end at Peace Walker's facility in the mountains, kind of like how OKB-0 is hidden in the corner of Afghanistan in the Phantom Pain. That can be the final area locked off by story progression. The first area locked off would probably be the bridge Snake crosses in the Cloud Forest, which is easy. Just make the bridge under repairs or under really heavy guard. The area before that can be the extended tutorial area or low hostility zone, as it's somewhat small and early in the game. It also shows you some different biomes you'll see, as well as gives you some enemy patrols to dodge or take down. want camouflage to remain a staple for the stealth and keep the hunting from Metal Gear Solid 3 with a few tweaks. I want hiding in bushes or tall grass for an increase to the camo index. I want only one outfit unless you drop it in from Mother Base. Possibly climbing trees to get food or hide. Another thing I want to return is animal hunting and eating. I do feel like Snake would not always have prepared food for him. There's even a Peace Walker cutscene where he eats a fish while chasing after Peace Walker. The PSP also likely prevented this from being a mechanic in the original. Bring back the stamina system from Metal Gear Solid 3 and the animal hunting and eating. Give us some biomes to hunt in, different animals in different biomes. That could expand the map even more so. Maybe make dens and stuff like that. Also make the animals and soldiers reactive to each other. Maybe the soldiers shoot alligators or some wildcats. Possibly even a few soldiers shoot non-threatening animals, like the troublemakers. Mother Base is something I know that many longtime fans would love to see come to life. And I mean the true blue, honest to goodness, monthly birthday party having, fishing, mess hall eating, soccer game hosting Mother Base with an inside that you can actually go in and explore, and maybe even a room for Snake. While the Phantom Pain gave us a Mother Base to visit and paint, I think we all thought it was less a home, but more of a chore. A Peace Walker remake should absolutely add the ability to go to Mother Base. A full, tourable infrastructure, windows, towers, balconies, fishing, dynamic soldier behavior, definitely put work into that. Make the soldiers have a few places to relax as it grows, and eventually have the monthly birthday parties, CQC combatives, eating or showering for reflex and stamina. I want to see all the important characters and give them lines to say to Snake. Maybe even give them activities to do together with Snake. Maybe Amanda, Cecile, and Chico could have food with Snake. Kaz and MSF soldiers could practice CQC. Paz, Huey, and Strangelove could have their own reserved routines and dialogue. Give us night and day cycles, dynamic weather and guard rotations, NPC routines and paint jobs, decoratable rooms, fishing and boat rides. I want Mother Base to have things to do and places to rest at. Maybe listen to the cassette tapes while I sit at a table or lay on a bed. I want to see soldiers having cookouts on the deck of the barracks platform. I want a home to come back to. That alone would make the game replayable beyond the Phantom Pain ever was. I also don't know if I have or will mention this, but letting us see new platforms being built before they are is cool. It's a cool detail. The original Peace Walker had it, and I believe MGS5 did as well. I don't want outposts with predictable guard locations. Give us random squads or patrols that comb the desert or jungle while we're going through it. Once we get close to the next story mission, kick up the guards, have some tension music, and have Kaz come over the radio to let you know you're close to the mission objective. The boss fights, specifically the ones that say to be continued, should send you back into the loadout screen or ask if you want to return to Mother Base to prepare and come back. If training at Mother Base would help, there needs to be a lot of facilities at Mother Base. Shoot houses, a range, vehicle training. I don't want Snake to use vehicles, maybe sneak in the back of transport trucks, but I want to be able to capture tanks and helicopters still. As far as getting around the map, the transport trucks or box travel would be fast ways to get around, or let us have a chopper pick us up and fly us across the map. Now, this chopper could get shot down if you take off all the enemies in alert. Otherwise, the chopper would appear like an enemy chopper, and it wouldn't arouse any suspicion. I absolutely want difficulty settings. I don't care if it's for the general game or if it's a per mission thing. If we're going to have multiplayer and especially co-op, I want to be able to turn the enemy AI to a more aggressive or reactive setting. Give them a longer vision cone, but no less weak to camouflage, smarter tactics. But don't make them have good, crazy aim compared to regular. Maybe give them an extra handful of soldiers in the platoon. Still make it realistic shooting accuracy, but maybe give us less health or slower regeneration. I want resupplies to remain as they were in the original Peace Walker, where they add a food item on top of rations. Maybe rations could refill all of your stamina, which could actually be tied to health regeneration speed, and buffs your crawl and carry speed for half an hour. Or maybe you can develop better nutrient packages to increase the effect duration, while food from hunting only fixes your stamina, depending on how good the food is. But you can only carry one ration before needing a resupply, or up to 3 if all upgrades are developed. The tea could slow stamina loss, useful for climbing cliffs or sprinting for long distances, and maybe coffee could give you a temporary speed boost. Anyways, I'm getting off track. I did enjoy the side objectives each mission had in the Phantom Pain, encouraging replay for the missions for different experiences and rewards in the form of resources or personnel and GMP. If the missions take a hot zone or mission area system similar to the Phantom Pain, that would pull this together with that game and the original Peace Walker very well. Just don't make the mission load in with a long, unskippable helicopter ride, or a credit scene that tells you exactly what enemies you'll be facing. Maybe you and your co-op friend just interact with a Mother Base brand mission start crate, like starting a mission from the field in the Phantom Pain. We have our optional briefing tape, and it opens the loadout screen to prepare for the mission, just like Peace Walker. Then the characters just stand from the crate and we can move on while the mission is being relayed to us by Kaz or whoever. Give us a mission log. Maybe have a prototype iDroid that only has mission details and a map. The weapon and loadout system were handled well in the Phantom Pain, but I would like the chance to do my own subsistence runs. The materials refinement from the Phantom Pain can come back, I guess, but I'd prefer GMP and maybe food and weapons and soldiers be the only thing that you need to supply Mother Base with. That being noted, I'd like food, medical supplies, and weapons to be something you need to pick up in the field to keep Mother Base supplied and fed, similar to the original. Perhaps you can fold in supply trucks that have a bit of all of them that are transported around the map, similar to Ghost Recon Wildlands, just not labeled on the map. We have to find them driving the trucks in the open world, but they have signs on the side telling us what's inside. I enjoy the way combat deployments work in the original Peace Walker. I wouldn't mind if they switched to the time-based deployments like in the Phantom Pain, but if they do that, don't tie the timer to having the game open. Keep developments and deployments tied to the console clock or some other timer that doesn't stop when you close the game. Keep the fights similar to how they were in the original Peace Walker. Let the vehicles do environmental destruction damage. Some boss fights caused environmental destruction in the original. We can even forgive the buildings being magically repaired upon open world revisits, besides, story relevant destruction. The vehicles should still be difficult or require the right tactics to take it non-lethally and ship it back to Mother Base. The rewards for these vehicles being taken back to Mother Base can mean they'll be used for combat deployment for Mother Base soldiers, or you can sell them for GMP. I think the mission list and mission area structure of the Phantom Pain would fit how missions are structured in Peace Walker. The systems are so similar already. The open world should have dynamic occurrences though, like FSLN ambushes or wounded soldiers or other side objectives. that we've had before, rescuing POWs. But having mission areas for each mission, like the Phantom Pain, allows each mission to have curated enemy placements or secret tapes or camouflages, high-level soldiers, blueprints hidden in the missions, so that more special items are locked behind story progression, such as the stealth camo, which I think should be found on one of the Search for Zadornov missions, or the mission right before the Peace Walker fight. I think several things from the Phantom Pain should continue in or start in the Peace Walker remake. Reflex mode, helicopter rides to and from Mother Base, safe and hot landing zones, the health system from the Phantom Pain, calling in new camouflage and ammo, side ops returning like vehicle unit destruction, mine clearing, POW rescue, weapon customization, and absolutely Mother Base. Just much more of an open world in itself. Just not hostile and much more dense. However, some stuff from the MGS Delta remake should show up instead of a few systems. Keep stamina and how it affects health regen, recoil control, handshakiness. Put swimming in, torches and caves, wound curing. Maybe make wounds requiring first aid restrict how much health you can regenerate until you heal it. Definitely keep the loadout looking similar to the Phantom Pain. I also think the soldiers should put the weapon strap around their heads or shoulder when it isn't equipped to keep hands free and the profile low, instead of at their waist. I think the D-pad weapon selection system should be very similar to the Phantom Pain, but I want the character to hold the weapon after it's selected, not just when I'm aiming, and put it away when I press that D-pad button again. This just looks better and melds the original system with the ease of use of the Phantom Pains. I enjoy having the option of sneaking around weaponless as well, as you could only let co-op actions happen with empty hands, or the single-handed CQC compatible weapons, which yes, keep that. Maybe add CQC with rifles like in MGS4, but don't allow cliff climbing or co-op actions or usual two-handed things to happen with a weapon equipped. I like sneaking around with a rifle in my hands, but I don't like having the rifle at my waist in gameplay. Instead of hiding it in the void between realms like Snake does in the original, or having it on like a supernatural string like in the Phantom Pain, I think the weapon should just have a sling and be strapped around the back. Snipers or launchers can be strapped in the opposite shoulder, making like an X shape on the back if you have the battle dress. I also think the dive to prone from the Phantom Pain should be used by characters only if they have two weapons on their back. Otherwise, the dive roll from Metal Gear Solid Delta should be used, and it should also roll you further than the dive to prone does. It also allows you to stand right out of it or lie down at the end just like Delta. Otherwise, the character does the prone to walking animation from the Phantom Pain and swaps to standing or crouching. The new Peace Walker additions should include co-op from the very beginning, all of the goofy side missions, including the Ghosts and the Puyan mission, but maybe exclude the date missions. Maybe make the missions work like Metal Gear Solid 5. You either find the mission crate in the open world and start it, or select it from the helicopter or helicopter pad, or wherever you get on the helicopter to go to and from Costa Rica. That way you can load the mission into the world and they can't be accidentally found and failed. Should also have extra missions taking advantage of the open world, maybe some remake exclusive outposts or overtaken villages to liberate, with POWs to free and documents to scan for new locations or an emblem piece or a gunsmith piece or new blueprints. You should add plenty of co-op moves to use, like lifting a partner up a high ledge or throw a rope so they can climb up it. special two-man jump or two-man something, and lots of opportunities to use them in the villages and open world. Last but not least, without a doubt, you have to let co-op friends join you at Mother Base to have fun and train. Let them all fit into the helicopter. We know they have 5 seats in there. The cutscenes should also be 3D modeled and animated and rendered like in Metal Gear Solid Delta, not the 2D graphic novel art style of the original. Like I said, let us climb trees. I don't want to be Tarzan, but let us sit on limbs and give us a way down that's safe and not fast, but not too fast. Like if we get caught in the tree, it shouldn't be easy to get on the ground and run away. Give us some guerrilla tactics, something like that. I think an interesting thing to implement would be the system from Metal Gear Solid 4, where you have battles between the Sandinistas and the CIA. If you let us fight with the Sandinistas and their small team ambushes on enemy vehicles or destroying a weapons cache, either as dynamic world encounters or as side ops you start on location, I would just like to feel like you're interacting with the locals. If the worry is that you could kill locals and then make an Assassin's Creed system where you can maybe accidentally kill 1 or 2, but it will force a reload or a mission fail if you continue to, be a serial killer. Plus, if you help them, maybe you convince them to join MSF. Maybe you could even find a camp of struggling soldiers, and if you give them food or give their wounded soldiers first aid in the cure menu, then they join you. These setups could be replayable once MSF numbers get low and less frequent, closer to the 300 limit you get. Also add a sprint, just because the open world is probably going to be big. Not to mention it's good for stealth. Contrary to popular belief, a sprint is good for stealth. Face paint should be adjustable anywhere, and you should be able to use the prone camo system from Ghost Recon Breakpoint to cover yourself up with foliage or mud or sand or snow and just lay more flat, like in the whole triangle thing from the Phantom Pain. But you should need to call in new uniforms or weapons or items like in the Phantom Pain. If in co-op, let it come in separate boxes with the player's code name or gamer tag on the sides of their box. A little bit of add some flair to it. Give us a camera or some kind of photo mode so we can take pictures, especially if we have co-op. Metal Gear Solid had dogs on patrol that could smell snake. I think having dogs on patrol with the CIA every now and then would be a great addition. We don't have dogs very often in Metal Gear. Maybe 1 or 2 canines per 5 or 8 soldier patrol. There can also be an item to use that masks your scent, or a technique like the prone camouflage could mask it slightly since you cover yourself with mud or leaves, if there are mud or leaves around. You should be able to lay flat on things like concrete, like the prone lay or the playing dead mechanic from the Phantom Pain, whatever that was. But prone camo and its effects on smell won't work if you're on concrete. Maybe it adds 5% camo to the animation could be the same as the lay flat from Peace Walker and Metal Gear Solid 4. The only way to fully hide or lose a dog's trail is to neutralize it or swim through water or crawl through a swamp. Otherwise, it'll find your trail and follow it to you. Maybe you can have a box labeled food, and if it smells you and finds the box, the soldier that inspects the barking will just tell the dog to stop barking and asking for food, or tell it that it just ate and it just stopped being a glutton. Have a little bit of funniness to it. I think the dog should be around other soldiers unless it's alerted and on the trail. If the dog reaches you, it bites and holds you in place, and you need to CQC to knock it out, but all the soldiers will come to check out what the commotion was. If the dog can't reach you, like you're in an air duct or a box or under a porch, then it just barks. When the soldier investigates, they either inspect the box. If it's food in the middle of the forest, they probably should still investigate and find you. Or toss a grenade in your hiding spot, but they don't become alerted until they see you. If we can avoid or lose the dog, there should be no alert. The original music for Peace Walker was amazing and really set a serious tone for the espionage setting. I loved the mother base main screen music as well as the mission setup screen music. They really hype me up before missions. The music can play whenever you're doing like base management business on the iDroid or in the loadout or mission select screen. I don't think having those tracks in the open world would fit too well. Maybe the combat music from the boss fights could continue into the remake. This section includes gameplay specifics and character models, as well as storyline cutscenes. This is the part to pay the most attention to, besides co-op. You need to keep the 300 limit, have Snake's hair a bit longer so his silhouette is more reminiscent of El Che as well. Keep the voice performances or have the cast return for new lines as needed for dialogue repairs or mother base conversations, especially if the mother base idea is fleshed out like I described. The 3D models of the characters should be faithful to the original with the Delta realism applied to it. No cartoon art style or anything. The story should highlight the seriousness and dangerous nature of guerrilla warfare. Snake also should keep the stun knife. A video I watched recently pointed out that after his experience with the Sorrow in Operation Snake Eater, he would likely treat human life much more preciously. I think Big Boss would think this way even more so than Venom, as Venom probably didn't have the exact same experience. You likely can't recall and replicate a near-death experience, so it's unlikely that experience was used in Venom's hypnagogia, just the memory of an experience happening without the details or context. That being said, this is the game where Snake makes a military nation with a revolving door of corpses fed on and off the battlefield. He knows life is precious, but in this game he learns that respecting the will of people is more important to him than their living alone. Keep special equipment that isn't canon out of cutscenes, unless the cutscene is non-canon, please. I don't want to see a soldier get sucked into a wormhole instead of being Fultoned, or the soldier slingshot thing used against Peace Walker unless it's a pseudo-historical recreation, like in Ground Zeroes. Maybe you can start those by listening to soldiers at Mother Base tell stories, and that could start the side op, or give you the option to start it, making it just an imagination or a visualization of their story. You will need to have voice actors with accents, since the majority of Mother Base staff would be FSLN or CIA, especially considering Amanda and Chico have accents. Perhaps some only speak Spanish, and you see subtitles like Phantom Pain. You wouldn't need a translator because Snake is fluent in several languages, including Spanish, so it would just be in subtítulos. As far as the size of Mother Base goes, look to the model in Peace Walker. I don't want to require a vehicle just to get to another platform. And I also don't like that the combat unit has a cluster of platforms, the medical unit has a cluster. I think it should be pretty obvious which platform is for what purpose. If you look at the original Peace Walker map, you can obviously see the control tower, you can see some barracks, you can see possibly a cargo loading area, you can see what looks like a mess hall right after you get the mess hall team. So I don't want separated clusters of platforms. That made sense for the Phantom Pain because it was a more structurally sound way to build it after getting it destroyed by XOF. Keep the platforms or the lane between them a good jogging or sprinting distance long, or just give us the fast travel box mechanic when we get above 5 platforms. I also don't want to require building them myself. They grow with the amount of soldiers or gear developed and missions completed in unit level that Mother Base has in the original. So just keep that. Also, can keep the construction on platforms visible, like in Peace Walker. Let us see the construction of new platforms in progress before it's finished. If it's finished before we leave Mother Base, then maybe it'll just load finished whenever we come back later. At the end of the game, after the fight with Boss and the credits have rolled, have Big Boss take the picture with the medic from Ground Zeroes. And that picture on a table next to an intel file of Boss's rescue by the fisherman and a Walkman recorder can be the end screen with Love Deterrence sending off all the characters for the next 9 years to happen. The cassette tapes should also remain, though I think being able to listen to them on your portable Walkman is much better. The Walkman could be controlled by the prototype iDroid. Just make the cassettes easier to access quickly than they are in the Phantom Pain. Don't change anything in the canon storyline or main mission list or whatever the system you prefer. There can be side missions with new characters, but there shouldn't be new main cast members or new mentions of lore significant things like Cypher or Zero. Besides maybe a mention of soldiers not really understanding their reasons for being in Costa Rica, or maybe even having misinformation for the reason for why they're there. The conversations you can listen to dynamically in the Phantom Pain were a really nice addition and really added to the whole stealth and information gathering aspect of espionage. This can be used to direct people to new outposts or relay new information like what new gear soldiers are being equipped with, or new vehicles you can find and engage with in the open world for a chance to take it back to Mother Base, just like the main story ones. The game director should also keep in mind this isn't just a story about espionage and goofy evil villains like Hot Coldman. Just watch some YouTube videos like Max Derrat's piece, A Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker Retrospective. It's about the true weight of nuclear weapons and the idea of deterrence. It's about fighting for one's own ideologies. Be sure to research the characters and their backgrounds. It's all there for you. Just pay attention to what they say versus what they mean. Facial capture should portray Snake's stoicism just as much as his turmoil, especially when he sweats after hearing the boss's voice, and when he's tortured by Strangelove and his smiles to Paz, and his friendship and trust of Kaz, as well as his betrayal at the end. The voice cast did an amazing job. The story is all told to us through our ears and pictures. Just notice the direction of the 2D cutscenes in the original and how they portray scale and scene. Keep the emotion with the cutscenes. The cameraman in the field look of the Phantom Pain actually shows up in the 3D cutscenes present inside Peace Walker. Those cutscenes are good for the ones that are inside missions or boots on the ground, so to speak, but the cutscenes should be classic movie quality Metal Gear. The reason I bring this up with emphasis is only because the transfer from graphic novel to 3D cutscenes isn't always shown the best, especially with live action stuff. There is a lot of emotion displayed in voice acting, so I feel like that should be accurately shown and emphasized in 3D. The written story, specifically how it affects Big Boss, is very emotional, as it's the boss breaking his heart all over again, and him having to let her go. Just listen to how he explains her decision to lay down her weapon, and how he considers himself to be nothing more than a weapon himself. I'm a bit sappy, but in these hyper-masculine Metal Gear games, there's always been something that brings our hero crashing down into humanity. And we sympathize with them. So we see they can struggle just as much as we do, if not more. And we grow closer to these characters and begin to care as a result. This is really important because after the Peace Walker fight, the buildup of suspicion to the eventual takeover of Zeke by Paz should make us just as conflicted and hurt as Snake. That's just good direction, and important to keep in mind when directing these cutscenes. Also, don't keep the QuickTime events in the cutscenes. It takes your attention away from looking at the scene to reacting to button prompts. Also, don't let us see Paz's underwear. I don't know if I mentioned that, but let's keep our Angel of Peace's innocence until she double-crosses us. It probably wouldn't hurt to give her a swimsuit instead of her underwear for the Peace Walker fight, too. Like, we don't know she isn't 16 until we find her diary after the Zeke fight. So just, I don't know, just take that how you will. Another thing I wouldn't mind changing is switching how Fultons worked in Peace Walker to how they worked in the Phantom Pain. You may need to pick up a body and move it to an open area before you can Fulton it. You can't just Fulton through a ceiling. Or have a transport truck in facilities that have support unit personnel extracting soldiers you put in a specific hiding spot, so you don't need to take them all the way outside. I mentioned earlier that the tutorial area can end when Snake crosses the bridge in the mountains, and if I didn't, then yeah. But when Snake rescues Chico, he says he told the enemy where his compas are. Maybe that's the point. The Sandinistas are scared out of their hiding spots, and that's when you can start doing the side ops in the field, like first aid missions in the ambushes, the resource destruction or extraction missions, and rescuing Sandinista POWs. There's your dynamic events on top of regular enemy patrols. Regular enemy patrols can also vary in locations. One spot could have a regular foot patrol on your first run through and a sniper team on the second time. Or bring dogs into the series and have them be able to sniff out Snake and other Sandinistas. These are all ideas I've had while playing through the series over the last 10 years. I almost wanted to say add disguises like the Rykov disguise in 3. You could go into enemy bases and blend in like in Portable Ops, but that wouldn't really fit Peace Walker's story. I've noticed that every game has something unique in it, and if there were one game that took the best of all of them and combined them, then I couldn't imagine anything outperforming it. But the story Peace Walker already provides, and the ability to really flex graphics with mist and swamps and giant facilities, small villages and plantations. If they pay attention to detail and hide some of the abandoned cocaine manufacturing facilities disguised as banana plantations, like just put those in the map or scatter some UMAs to have discussions with Chico about, then the amount of people that come for the interaction with the characters alone would be sky high. Every dude and his girlfriend would be singing happy birthday to your soldiers at the monthly birthday parties, eating good and bad food at the mess hall with Chico, Amanda, Kaz, Huey, Strangelove, and Paz. Maybe give all the characters lines to say involving Paz and Galvez after the end, but don't let Strangelove and Huey leave. Strangelove doesn't leave without Snake noticing, so this would be a plot hole anyway. Give it an atmosphere like it's hanging out with your friends in a Persona game. You'd have a hard time getting people off of Mother Base. But make the field interesting enough and you'll understand why these soldiers fight and why they're so driven to do so. For aid to the weak, to capture hearts and minds, to create outer heaven. If you stuck it out with me until the end, I appreciate you hearing me out. I know that there were some repeating points or other redundancies, but I'm going to push the excuse that because everything works off of each other, I just had to reiterate. If you have any ideas or would just like to tell me how much time I've wasted, then the comments section is open. I know I'm not the only one that wants the best for this franchise, and I know this could be a longer project. If it were up to me, I'd have a team working on the Metal Gear Solid remake while work is being done on this Peace Walker remake. With all of the base mechanics, the mother base mechanics and the enemy AI and all the systems I suggested to work, it would take time. And I don't think remaking Metal Gear Solid 1 would honestly be a huge task, considering the scale of the original game. If it were up to me, I would have a team working solely on the Peace Walker remake and another team remaking the MSX games or Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 to release on the same 2-disc release like the old school games. Like once you beat Metal Gear Solid 1 and the Tanker chapter, you'd switch to disc 2 and it would have Metal Gear Solid 2 and all its extras. Each and every one of these games are very special to me. Snake is very special to me. I just want these great stories to have plenty of reason for people to come back. I'm still playing Metal Gear Solid 5. I couldn't tell you why. I just feel like it's missing a lot. A co-op buddy and a good mother base for one, but the open world just feels so lifeless and not threatening to traverse. Metal Gear Solid 3 made the gameplay feel like surviving in the jungle, and that was my favorite mechanic in any game ever. Getting burn ointment from plants and beehives. That alone would have made Metal Gear Solid 5 better. But then I thought of Metal Gear Solid 4, like helping the rebels fight PMCs and destroying supply outposts in Metal Gear Solid 3. I thought about climbing cracks and cliffs in the Phantom Pain mixed with the stamina from 3, helping cure Eva in combat in 3, and then the history of guerrilla fighting, and it all just made sense to me. It was pieced together from there. So there you go. I did the easy part. If Konami is down, this is the perfect mix of all of the best of Metal Gear series to put into one game, made for as many people to play as possible together. I even lessened the amount of money and effort compared to the Phantom Pain significantly. I narrowed it to one open world, a mother base, and possibly some special arenas for boss fights or multiplayer. But no fob system, no second open world, no buddy systems besides co-op, and no padding. This is stretching their legs for a full remake or rebuild of the MSX games. They need new models, new maps, scripts, voice actors, and tons of new lines and new ideas to remake those. Well, that's it. I'm signing off for now. Thanks again for watching. You're pretty good.